I would like to announce our Fireside Chat, AI in Government from Experimentation to Everyday Operations, and I would like to welcome our moderator, Abby Lindenberg.
Well, good afternoon. How is everyone at CoMotion? All right, little noise after lunch. Okay, even claps, I like it, I like it. Well, I'm really excited to be moderating this panel. My name is Abby Lindenberg. I'm the founder and CEO of CAA. We are a media, publishing, and events company, and we specialize in annual business reports on 18 different markets around the United States, Philly and Miami being two of our 18 different markets. And we're unique in our approach in that we interview over 200 CEOs over the course of 6 months to put together every year's annual report. And then we release that report at a leadership summit and bring those contents to a live format. The next one is in Fort Lauderdale, so if anyone's from South Florida and is interested in joining us on June 11th, it is my invitation to you. Please come see me afterwards, or you can also go to our website at capitalanalyticsassociates.com. But I am particularly excited to be moderating this panel because I do believe that we are in an inflection point. AI is no longer just a concept that government is keeping at arm's length. We are actually seeing it implemented from 311 call centers to permitting queues to cybersecurity dashboards and budget decisions right now. But moving from experimentation to implementation is not easy, and not only on the technology side, but also on the leadership side. It requires buy-in from the front lines, it requires trust from the public, accountability to elected officials, and a clear-eyed answer to the question, what does success actually look like when it is public money and public lives that are on the line? So today I have three wonderful leaders with me. We have Anna Chammas, the Director of Innovation from Miami-Dade County, Frank Quintana, the CIO from the city of Miami Beach, and then Melissa Scott, who came for a very brief visit from the Northeast, CIO from the city of Philadelphia. Please give my panelists a round of applause. Kicking it off, I'd like to start with a nice humble brag from all three of you. If you had to point to one concrete example of where AI has already made a real difference for residents, not just in your residents in your jurisdiction, not just a pilot, but actually a program that has benefited your residences, what would have been? Anna, do you want to start?
So for us, one of the greatest accomplishments we've had with artificial intelligence is implementing it within our 311 environment. So we've created agents that support our agents. We've created chatbots that support our agents. Right now, our most effective deployments have been internal. They are, for us, the first pass at trying and making sure that we could measure all of the impact from a monetary perspective and also from an effectiveness perspective. So working and really improving that service delivery is really impacting the resident when we receive over 1 million calls a year and process over, I think, 800,000 service requests a year. So it's been quite impactful.
Wow, that's a lot. Frank?
So for us, we also did some of the call center piece, but not to pile onto that. One of the other ones that we did that was very it was our first customer-facing direct AI agent. And it's on the website today, and basically what it does is it allows residents, business owners, our elected officials, internal staff to search for our commission agenda items, after action minutes, for all of our committees and subcommittees, which in the past had been a little cumbersome because of the types of, records management systems that we all manage. Sometimes those aren't the most easy, to use, the most user-friendly. And many times we would find, we started to see it anecdotally, and then we started to pull more information from the departments directly that interact with the public. And we realized that many people were calling the city and tying up an employee to go look for things that could have been a PRR or to follow up for follow-up information on a particular item. So bringing that self-service through and relatively simple, from a technology standpoint, AI tool for them has been incredibly beneficial.
Excellent. And Melissa?
So where we've benefited the most thus far is from a cybersecurity standpoint. The bad actors are getting better. They're using the AI tools. So now we're using the AI tools to help us better to detect monitor, protect the city, which is one of our main important responsibilities, especially mine, of course, and my CISO. We're kind of behind the ball in regards to where we are for the using it for city services, but we're on our way. We have over 30,000 employees, so the first thing that we are approaching is the training. So introducing the staff to the simplistic versions of AI, which is a chatbot. We developed a training and rolled out a citywide tool, is a co-pilot chat, which allows city employees to draft memos, do analytics works, and then ensuring that they can speed up and perfect what their regular schedule duties are. And then we're working on a citywide chatbot to do the same, where we have our customer service reps are able to utilize this to answer questions throughout departments, which is what is really great about this particular project is that we're trying our best to make sure that we eliminate the silos. So initially, Elle and I wanted to roll out a chatbot, and then the Commerce wanted to roll out a chatbot. And I say, hey, wait a minute, we need to just do a citywide chatbot, because believe it or not, Commerce asks the questions about license and inspections, and the Revenue Department answers questions about license inspections, and vice versa. So if we had a chatbot that ran throughout the entire city, all the customer service reps would be able to help, maybe not necessarily with completing a task, but answering the questions rather than having to hang up and call back again.
Isn't that interesting, the way that government works in silos the way we do? I think that's amazing. That's an incredible accomplishment. We're trying to do the same. He is probably a fantastic resource, since we're such a small group, and we could talk. What his team has rolled out in the city of Miami Beach has been rather incredible, and his CDO Tony is pretty awesome, and I think at the root of it is a centralized ability to hold data in a specific platform that then will enable that citywide deployment. But that's really advanced, and you're well underway.
They're giving me a hard time.
30,000 employees is a lot.
Yeah, each department wants to hold their own tool. They don't want to break the silos. Right. So. Yep, we're on. So I'll have to reach out to you.
One thing you can. I mean, I'd be
yeah.
happy to share what went well and what didn't. What helped us is we started our data journey years ago. So we already had a large repository, a warehouse of information from licensing, permitting system, from our policing systems, from a lot of the other things that we did already, and we had those in place. So for us, this started probably 8, 9, 10 years ago, from an analytics and business intelligence standpoint. So we're already sanitizing all that. It's harder to make the jump, and it's not lost on me how fortunate we were that we had kind of gone down that path already, because it really made building tools on top of it easier. But if you're siloed and there's no centralized data for that, then it makes it all the more difficult.
And one thing I think about when you are all talking is not the silos, the connectivity, who's responsible, and setting policy behind it all, underpinning that policy. And there's a growing conversation about AI governance and making sure that the tools are also fair and accountable. So what does responsible AI actually look like in the practice of your level of government? You can each speak to your own governments. Beyond just having the policy document, or also if you could speak maybe not to yourself, but as a sign to other cities, what happens when you don't start with that policy?
I think that what Philadelphia is doing is a very similar approach to ours, where we first started the journey a couple years back with just simply training and ensuring that employees had access to the tools, understood best practices, while we were trying to cleanse the enormous amount of data that we do have in our centralized trusted data platform. So that first stage in really trying to establish governance really centered around, and policy really centered around training and having employees really learn what is available to them. I believe that having and establishing partnerships has been incredible also. We have great partners in San Jose, in Boston, in New Jersey, and now I'm going to be able to say that I have a great partner in the city of Philly, so that's pretty awesome. And so sharing with each other and ensuring that we're all, playing by the same playbook allows us to leverage each other's work, right? So I don't know if I'm directly answering the question, but doing it responsibly is working with others who are going through things that are very similar to ourselves to really deploy something as aggressively as possible, because the technology is advancing and we do have to scale and train our workforce to scale and ready themselves for what's to come.
Frank or Melissa?
So it's interesting because while we're rolling out the policy, we just released the policy March 24th. Right, thank you. So finally it's out, like it took forever. And part of that is, you can imagine, city council has questions, the public has questions, everyone wants to know. It's strange because at one point it's almost like they're saying, why are we so far behind? And all in the same sentence they're saying, well, we don't need, we shouldn't have AI tools. So the first thing that we talk about is making sure we have human oversight, human in the loop process, creating clear guardrails and guidelines, which is established within the policy, and then in ensuring that we explain to everyone it's about augmentation, not replacing staff. So that is very important, that as it's embedded in our training, that the employees understand that you do not want to use these tools and just have it spit out you put the prompts in and you get the information response back, and then you just copy and paste it. And you've seen there's been news articles and things of that nature where folks are doing that, and it's showing that the prompt is embedded in. Like a human, you should be reviewing it, making sure it's clear, it's concise. That is how you responsibly use it. If you have code, and so this is where the challenge comes in. So say you're writing code and you write code 100 times and it's always right each time, and then you start to bypass putting it in the testing environment, and you say, I don't really need to do that anymore. I can just put it straight into production. That's where we run into those challenges. So stressing to employees that human in the loop process is very important to maintain integrity.
And I think that's something that the public sector is having a hard time with, the private sector is having a hard time with. How does that monitoring experience function at the City of Philadelphia? How are you holding people responsible to making sure there's a human behind this technology?
Well, that's what we don't do good. Hold anybody responsible for anything. So that is the challenge in it all, because government the structure is not really established to really monitor individuals. The performance evaluation structure is poor. Identifying who should be getting raises and increases is a poor structure altogether. So I am hiring someone to come in to help us with that, but I'm not necessarily sure that it's going to help us with AI. So there has to be a trust factor, and also us using it from a cybersecurity standpoint, putting the guardrails, individuals into environments where we're monitoring. What we're more concerned about than anything else is our data. Our data leaving the city, being used improperly, getting into the wrong hands. So we're looking at that, and we're creating an environment that has a structure for that balance. But when you talk about an individual misusing the tool, that's a little harder to control. So I'm actually interested to hear if any of you have figured out some ways. I'll be able to take it back to Philadelphia to implement.
Yeah, what does cybersecurity look like in the age of AI? Have either of you found it to be more worrisome? Have you found helpful tools within it? Anna, Frank, do you want to start?
So we have really leveraged AI to improve to speed up our cybersecurity team's response to screening and passing applications to be able to go to production. So the team at within our IT shop has really leveraged AI in the most responsible way possible, starting with our cybersecurity team. They're really proactive to do that. And I recommend for everyone's cybersecurity team to really focus on that, because that allows for downstream innovation. That allows us to be able to, put the material and the tools in the hands of the developers, because we've already taken that very tough job of, scanning through security and ensuring that there is criteria set for security scanning. I don't know if you've, sort of gone through a similar.
Yeah, so for us, we have a relatively small cybersecurity team, so any tool that would automate things that would historically take them a ton of time to do is a good thing, right? I mean, that was low-hanging fruit for us to get to that point where we were leveraging some of the things in the tool sets and in the ecosystem of technology that we had to do those things, so they can be more progressive about evaluating new tools, figuring out new policies, and I think it's relatively easy, for an IT director or a CIO to show up and say, hey, you know what, this is our policy, thou shalt not, blah, 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 right? And that's great. We can all write a document and we can all publish it, and everyone in our organization can summarily ignore it, So that's not, having the policy and all that is important, obviously, for compliance-related things, but the strategy that we took is to have more kind of guardrails. So it's there's some gray area, within a degree. We focus more on protecting the data that we have. We've written some things into our procurement code, into our boilerplate language with the attorney's office. So when contracts go out, there's a foundational baseline for what we do and don't do and what is permissible. And we routinely go through our AI policy that we published. When we published it, we took very few, you will not do X, Y, and Z. And for the most part, it was, if you have something, bring it to us and we'll review it. So it's kind of an ongoing thing, and it gave departments a sense of ownership. So they felt that if there was a need, they would come to us and do it. And it also helped us tighten some of the tools that we had where we saw that there was overlap, going back to the silos that we were talking about before.
Yes. We're doing the same thing where we're kind of softening the approach and not hammering down on don't you do this, don't you do that, to create that level of trust. And as I mentioned, most of our success with the AI tools have come in not just cybersecurity. I forgot to mention the police department. They're very aggressive and doing a really great job at piloting and rolling out different solutions to help them keep our city safe and secure. And but from back to a cybersecurity standpoint, one of the things that I've focused on tremendously is we spend a lot of money on the tools and ensuring that we're protecting from penetration, that getting into our systems. But I made a concerted effort to ensure that we focused on the training for the employees. Because the phishing is one of the main ways that we can let bad actors into our environment. Upon my arrival as the CIO, we've only reached about 65% of completion for cybersecurity training, which is below industry standard. Last year, we made it to 91%. So that was definitely something I wanted to focus heavily on, continue to focus on it. We gamified it. And the gamification did not work. Everyone, we did the little trophies and the things, and so you know what I said? Hey, I'm shutting down your internet. And that's what I did. If you didn't complete the training, you had a certain amount of time, the internet is a luxury. People said, well, how do they do their jobs? They don't need a job. They don't need the internet to do their job. Like you're already in the network. You can access all the systems you have. And if you're, I think it was the Treasury's office said that they had a problem, and they weren't, because they were working off-site, and they needed to be able to get in, and I did not let them in. I said this was the date. You all should have listened to what the date was. We're going to work with you to make the changes you need to make your environment safe and secure. So your team can do what they need, but you need to complete the training. There were some other things that they needed to change within their
It's
their
good, the buck
systems as well.
stops there,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. And
Don't
so,
mess with Melissa.
It-
I know,
listen,
I know.
managing the scope of 30,000 employees is daunting.
It is. And what I will say, I have to give credit to our mayor, Sherelle L. Parker, because I've been at the city for 11 years. And prior to this, if I had taken that approach, I would have been fired, right? Because it would have been easily to say, oh, people would complain. But under her leadership, she is definitely making sure that we have the support we need, the tools we need. They're working with the budget. We were able to get $3 million last year to roll out a lot of different tools that increased our security posture. So now I'm able to take this kind of stance because at the end of the day, I can have a conversation with leadership and say, hey, would you rather pay ransom or would you rather me just turn the internet off until they complete their training so they know what to do? I said this. That's how I got my $3 million. But
I hope no one answered number one.
Right, they said, well, the budget said, well, how much is ransom? Way more than the $3 million I'm asking you for.
Well, you know, hearing, you know, it's not an easy road to connect all the pieces, get all the approvals, but on the flip side, also, your communities are quite different, right? So I think of like the county. You have a lot of different municipalities to work with. You have some rural areas, some suburban areas, some city areas. How are you tying this together, considering the complexity, to know what kind of technologies and AI to start to implement? Like, how do you consider all the demographics and complexities that you're constantly dealing with?
Yeah, we have tribal too. So one of the things that we've done is establish really, really solid relationships. This is a partner right here sitting next to me. He is the CIO of a city. We have 34 municipalities within one greater Miami-Dade County. It is not a very easy system to navigate. And so the more that we have partnerships and we work and collaborate with each other, the more that, instead of competing with each other, the more that we're able to advance the work and be able to leverage, hey, what did you do? And he says, oh, you know, we're working on this. And we'll all run into similar industry events. And we'll be able to sit down and we talk and we communicate. And I think one of the key things is to just collaborate with your partners, because that is the way that you can advance the work the quickest. So I don't know if that really fully answers the question, but, you know, collaboration is key, you know, across even state lines.
And we're talking about collaboration, and a lot of collaboration between different municipalities have come up. But how do you look at the private sector? What kind of private sector partnerships are each of you trying to foster or have fostered successfully?
So, do you have my comments are more about what we're trying to do. We haven't been able to be successful at it yet. And so the challenge is, as being able to work with the private sector hasn't been very easy because we have so many rules and regulations, and we want to have conversations more freely. It's almost like you can have the conversations, but if there's RFP, you can't have a conversation. And then I'm always worried that we're having conversations that leads to a RFP that leads to me to wear orange, and I just don't look good in orange. So, you know, I'm not going to have the conversation but one time. But there's some folks in San Antonio that's been really successful in figuring out how to incubate outside of the city's walls. And what I mean by that is work with the private sector, work with startups, identify what the problem is, allow them to test, to have access to some of our data and actually see what our systems are, how they work, how they're integrated, and then come up with the MVP, and then we contract on that. Because what is really happening is that we're getting into contracts with the vendors, and both sides are not very honest about the conversation. On the city side, we're saying, oh, you know, our systems are great. We're going to have our subject matter experts on the call. They're going to be readily available all the time, and they're not. And then you have the vendor saying, oh, we could do just about anything. It doesn't matter how bad your system is. We'll figure it out. We'll do whatever it doesn't matter if it's in a contract or not. We're going to go far and beyond, and they don't. And then, so now we're in this RFP together, and we're in this marriage almost, and then 3 months into the marriage, we want a divorce. I feel like the incubating outside gives us a chance to date, right? Rather than just getting married all at once. So I'm working with the procurement commissioner to create the same level of structure that allows us to work with the private sector and individuals in education as well in order to incubate and identify the MVP prior to contracting.
Frank.
There we go. Procurement in the private sector, I mean, the public sector is, difficult because there are guardrails, and for good reason. It's public money, it's not ours. We can't go sell more widgets and just have more money, right? So we have to be stewards of the public trust with funding. Something that we've been trying to do more of is not just getting into kind of those collaborative relationships with the private sector, but doing it with academic institutions as well. Like for us, Miami-Dade College has been a fantastic partner. For those of you that are out of area, there may be universities or colleges that have programs that really align with that. So you can leverage some of the things that they're already teaching their students or some of the capacities that they have, and then it also helps you build a pipeline for staff development and just opportunities for continuing education as well. A lot of times, we have a big international name, so it's a blessing and a curse, right? We have a lot of people that want to come and do business with us. Everyone wants to do a pilot. That's great. The pilot's going to end up in a procurement, So there are some other things that we've done in the past too. One of them is we created a cybersecurity waiver through a resolution, which.
What is that?
Oh, so the cybersecurity waiver lets us leverage some language that the state provided from the legislature side and gives us the ability to purchase certain types of things that classify as cybersecurity without as public a procurement as is typically intended by city code. So we're trying to find responsible ways to do that so that we don't end up in orange, like you said. But you have to get a little bit more creative because I can't just go to you at a private entity and go, hey, I want to try that thing. The last thing I'll mention too, and it's been several years that we've been working on it, we have less tools, but more robust tools today than we had. So instead of having 7 applications or 7 platforms that do the same thing, we might have 3, 4, or 5 of them that have a lot more breadth and depth, which makes it easier to roll out some of these things because they have the capabilities already. And I don't say that as a way to get locked down with a particular vendor because that's equally dangerous, but if you're strategically looking at who it is that you contract with, and you look at things as kind of large buckets that you can operate in. For us, it's been very helpful, not just for the compliance and the training portion, but also we kind of start with what we have first and then go out for other opportunities until inevitably, yes, we have to do a procurement.
We did something really original in Miami-Dade County that hopefully is going to permeate to our municipalities. We established, based on the Israeli Innovation Authority, we established the Miami-Dade Innovation Authority with the help of private sector investors and philanthropy dollars. And that was a partnership with Catalyst, Ken Griffith, and with Knight Foundation and with Miami-Dade County. Everyone put in a $3 million investment into this organization, and we created very specific rules to help government bypass a little bit, not bypass, but sort of circumvent some very stringent rules to be able to rapidly procure these pilots. So Miami-Dade Innovation Authority will give a $100,000 grant to a company. These challenges are ongoing. Right now, we are reviewing various challenges. Upcoming is Department of Emergency Management, another one with water and sewer. And then, so what we're doing is we're testing their, based on their needs. IT can't, fulfill the needs of every single business line. So they're actually going to test these things. And I think water and sewer is going to have 3 pilots. Port Miami launched of their, 4 pilots, 3 of the companies, and it allows us to fast track procurement once we've been able to test bed them through this mechanism. Another really useful thing is, I see my partner from Microsoft over there, is leveraging the marketplace from within your existing vendors, right? So, you know, what we have in Microsoft is the ability to access software integrators. And what we have as an advantage is that once I've done that, then other governments are able to leverage my procurement or what we've procured as an organization. We have German over there in the corner who is, you know, is an incredible director in our department, and he is able to, you know, leverage and able to procure on the backs of other states, other organizations that are, you know, county or city specific, for us to be able to move certain technologies forward because procurement is such a barrier.
Are there any other statewide policies that have either helped or challenged the facilitating technologies and AI on the local level?
You know, look, we just recently all went through and breathed a sigh of relief. The Department of Justice put down the gavel and said that we all had to be compliant for ADA and be WCAG compliant with like 50-something criteria for our PDFs and our applications to make sure they're accessible to anyone that wants to, that has public access to services. So if it is a service that's being rendered, then it is something we need to make sure is fully compliant for any type of disability or person of disabilities. And what we ended up doing, because that was daunting, and there was no government that we reached out to that was ready to tackle this. And we had over 200,000+ PDFs out there. We have over 2,000 applications. I mean, the latest number is 1,200. But when you think of, you know, expansions of those applications, you're looking at about 2,000. And, you know, German, who I also pointed him out, has been a proponent and a partner in helping me, my team, and, you know, the team over, you know, PDF remediation to really try to find solutions. And we went out there and we bid it out and we really looked at it. And I mean, I think the last count was like an aggregation of like $4 million it was gonna cost us to do all of this. And in the end, when we were still dealing with the April deadline, you know, we said, you know what, let's just grab the best and the brightest within our department. Let's put them in a war room. Let's create this Navy SEALs team. Let's equip them with AI. Let's experiment and look at what's happening out there. Let's, you know, and with the fraction of that $4 million cost, I think we were able to implement within a couple of weeks a solution that helped us rapidly classify, score, and remediate, I think 90-something% of the documents with at least an 80% passing score, which got us much further than we had even thought possible. And now I have governments all over the country asking us, how did you guys do that? And literally it was putting everyone into a room, equipping them with that, you know, we used Anthropic tools, I'm not gonna lie, and we leverage Anthropic tools through our Microsoft Copilot Enterprise tools, which we were able to leverage different types of AI models to solve for different types, like all the different series. So we had one team working on classification, another one on scoring criteria, another team just like running the documents and scanning them. Then we had German's team over there running everything through Site Improve and scanning everything. And it was just like this incredible coordination and synergy that took place. And that is the kind of work we need to be doing, not just internally, but across the board. So like if you guys need help with that, now we have something that we can say, hey, we can help you tackle that, because the DOJ just passed a law. I mean, it just extended that law so that we don't have to be compliant for another year. But all of us fall into that 2027 deadline now, and we can't wait to the last minute. So that is just one example of the regulations that sort of the gavel that's dropped on us as technology organizations, where we're expected to be nimble and innovative and move things forward, but then we have every obstacle and barrier, you know, that we have to cross in order to innovate.
And I'm hearing you speak and how there's so much to consider to get ready to implement these things, and then on the resident side, all your lovely residents, we just want things to work.
Yes.
And we don't care what effort was put into making it work. We just want it to work. We want the pothole filled. Let's do it. How are you measuring the success of all of this work and implementation once the technology has been released? How are you all monitoring your success levels? Frank, you want to start?
You have a great data analytics.
Yes, exactly. Brag about your data.
I told Tony you said nice things about him.
I love that.
So we really focused our AI strategy more on internal tools than public ones. Because we had that experience and the year's worth of historical knowledge, not just data, because we were able to correlate a lot of it, we knew where a lot of the pain points were. So we decided the AI initiatives at the city started very kind of homegrown within IT. It was very much a grassroots kind of initiative that we had. So we were trying to put enough tools and capabilities, and especially training, which I know we've all talked about, so I don't want to dwell on that necessarily, in place so that staff felt comfortable with what was coming. And we took, it could have been any department. It could have been our 311 center, it could have been building, it could have been the clerk's office, it could have been sanitation. Hey, we know you're having this problem. How do you feel about being able to fix it like this, right? And we started to grow on that. And what we found was we ended up freeing up staff more than anything else, which we never had to have the direct conversation of you're going to be replaced by a robot, because they saw that really what they were doing is getting rid of that day-to-day work they hated doing anyway, and it freed them up. So we had professionals being able to do professional work, not sitting there pushing paper, doing remedial, repetitive type of tasks. And everything that we've done from an agent or an AI standpoint has been incremental. So we started with very low-level agents built by departments. So, you were human resources, we built one for you to look through all your documents and your kind of things. So when you asked about how do you work around governance and how you work around mistakes, it only knows what we taught it. So you can make an argument either way. Going back to we created the problem ourselves that you were trying to get away from, which was everything was siloed. But we did it with the intent of getting departments comfortable with the technology and understanding that it was always right and giving them ownership so they had to work with it to make sure that it was accurate. And over time, we've started to stitch those things together. So now a year into this, we're seeing more of that fruit come to bear because we can start tying together our permitting, our economic development, those types of systems together, and now there's a holistic suite there. We have a tool that's launched internally. We have not made it public yet, and essentially what it looks at is all of our licensing, permitting, and inspections going back to the beginning of our record.
Ooh, I want that.
So we should have that conversation. I'll trade you that for the ADA.
Yeah,
Cool. So what that lets staff do is so we are on our 4th system since the beginning of time, for permitting. And some of the old ones are very disparate records. Some of them were somebody scanned, on a flatbed scanner or something that was probably drawn on a napkin, on paper that was falling apart. So we have everything from that to fully digital submissions today. So now you can ask it questions where you can find out information for the entire history of a folio, of a parcel. One of the things that's a real pressure point for us at the city, like it is, I'm sure, for you as well, is why does permitting take so long? Why is it impossible to build here? Why is it, right? Well, because quite bluntly, the permitting process is a pain in the ass for everybody. It's incredibly complex. There's a bunch of regulation and a bunch of other stuff that's there. And there's really no other way to put it. It's difficult. Now, do governments sometimes make that harder? Yes. But intrinsically for people that don't pull permits on a regular basis, it is a very complicated, process to work through. So it's really helped our staff internally. So you call me and I have to answer questions for you. You can go in there and it'll give you accurate information. As opposed to I had to look through boxes, I had to call something from an archive, I had to look through the old system, I had to look in the new system, and then you sit there and you look at it, where tools like that, it has saved us hours, and now we're really starting to see some of that ROI.
Amazing.
Once it kind of, gets its legs under it and the staff starts using it extensively, we hope to, roll it out for the rest of the internal staff. The public side, that's one of those conversations for us that we haven't really talked on, is what you keep private and what you make public. And it's not about preventing information to become public, but for something like the permitting process, that is so complex and there's so much nuance there. that making some of those things available to people that don't understand any of it is almost making the issue worse, you know, because you don't know how to work with the information that you're being presented with. And that same applies to our own staff internally. There are departments we want to share it with, and departments that don't have the foundational professional experience to be able to determine, you know, what they're looking at. So that's been a conversation for us. I don't know. if
Well,
that's affected
we
you
are
too as
coming
well.
to time, and I want to give everyone one more opportunity to speak before we finally close. And so you can either follow up on that question, Melissa, or what is one piece of advice that you would give to another municipality that might be starting their AI adoption, either advice or lesson learned? Melissa, do you want to kick us off?
I formed the answer to the other question so eloquently. I don't know, this is hard. I'll just go back to the transparency, that question. So under the leadership of Mayor Parker, she established a department, Philly Stat 360, which is led by her initiative to create a government that you can see, feel, and touch. So we worked with that department to stand up a dashboard that you can go on now and see it, Philly Stat 360, and look at the metrics in which we're measuring each department as far as their productivity is concerned. So we worked through that. That took a while to put together along with our GIS team and this Philly Stat 360 team. And so that was just the beginning, and that's the beginning of us gathering data, cleaning data, which will then bring us to a point where we'll be able to eventually have the data available for the public. Because, of course, the main concern is not only the complexity of the data, but the data being true. And so folks will say, oh, well, it's hallucinating. Well, if you're training it with bad information, it's going to spit out bad information. So I think that that's also, to answer to your question, is that to put some focus in the data, put some focus in the hard part that the businesses normally pushes us away from. They don't want to take the time to help clean the data, help us understand the data better. They're the SMEs because they're working in those departments and understand their data more clearly than anyone else. But I will put some focus on there in order for us to elevate beyond the tools on the back end and get closer to where we really want to be on the front end to alleviate the pressure from the individuals who are constantly answering calls and not able to do the processing, which eventually will help in moving permitting along if I don't have to spend all day answering your questions.
Frank? Yeah, one piece of advice or lesson learned?
So for me, I think the successes that we've had with this and many of the other things that we've done as a department is focus on training. You can't force people to learn, but you can sure give them opportunities to do it. You know, the ones that are going to learn, they're going to learn, and they'll take advantage of that. I think the more you understand, and this is more of a cultural thing, so it's maybe the hardest one out of all of them. If you understand what your lines of business or your departments do, and where their pain points are, this becomes easier because they're going to be much more willing to cooperate and be part of the process if they don't feel like they're being forced into it. One of the great things about IT is, you know, you have to change and you have to learn and do things. One of the worst parts about IT is you have to force people to change and learn new things, which they generally don't want to do, you know. And then it's we started using a phrase sometimes, which was to stay liquid, because don't try to force a situation, okay? If you're trying to get a technology or a solution in place and you're meeting nothing but resistance, move on. Find another path, go to someone who's willing, because especially in government, when government does very government things sometimes, and I mean that respectfully, you burn out trying to force an issue when you're just not getting cooperation. So what are you doing at that point, you know? We don't have, to Anna's point about, you know, we want to innovate and we want to be progressive, we want to do all this stuff, and then someone comes and drops a bomb on you and you go, good luck, figure that out. It's a federal requirement now. You don't have the amount of time and effort and resources generally that you want to be able to do those things, so you have to really focus on what it is that you spend that on.
And Anna?
So my piece of advice with the topic of experimentation to everyday operations is start shifting your ideology to AI first, but not always AI, right? Just try to tackle everything with that mindset, because as technology advances, there is going to be nothing. Ultimately, it's going to flip government upside down.
Yep.
And it's going to make it headless. So, AI first.
Yep. Well, Anna, Frank, Melissa, thank you very much for your honesty and your candor. Please give my panelists another round of applause.